Hi, I'm Mike Shea, author for Sly Flourish and author of Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master. And this is a live Twitch show in which I am talking about my new Kickstarter for Sly Flourish's Fantastic Adventures, Ruins of the Grendleroot. Over the course of this video, I'll be talking about Ruins of the Grendleroot and its design and how it was built and what it offers you and other folks who are playing 5th edition fantasy RPGs, Dungeons & Dragons games. And I will go into the nitty gritty. So I will show all kinds of artwork and all kinds of design. I will show you my notes and some of the adventures that are still going through production so that you can get a good idea of what this book is all about. As I mentioned, this is live on Twitch, so if you happen to be watching live on Twitch, you can say hello. I have the chat window open right here, and I'm happy to take any and all questions about this book, what it offers and what it has in it, and any spoilers, and just any questions that anybody has, how it relates to the other Fantastic Adventures book, but also other products, other Sly Flourish products that you have seen in the past. So I am hoping that this video will be useful to you if you're interested in this product. You can actually go, I will go straight to it. You can get to the Kickstarter page. It is currently funded. So this book is definitely happening, and we just passed our first stretch goal and are a pretty good way already towards our second stretch goal. We have about 6 stretch goals. I'll talk about all of those in this video as well. But if you want to back the Kickstarter, which is the best way to get a hold of this book, you can certainly pick up this book once it's fully published, probably either late this year or early next year. But you're going to get a lot more cool stuff if you back the Kickstarter. There are, just for the Kickstarter's sake, there are 4 pledges for this Kickstarter. A $15 pledge, which gives you all of the digital stuff for this book. A $20 pledge, which gives you all of the digital stuff for this book, plus the ability to order a print-on-demand copy of this and any other books that are released as part of this Kickstarter from DriveThruRPG. And it's a little bit weird doing the whole print-on-demand version, but it is by far the most efficient way to get a book in your hands, and the most cost-effective way to get a book in your hands. So even though it's a little weird that you have to go and then order the book and pay for the print cost, it is definitely cheaper than if you were to, if they were all shipped to me and then I had to ship them out. That'd be kind of a disaster. Many other Kickstarters do that, but not this one. There is also a pledge if you don't have the previous version of Fantastic Adventures or Fantastic Locations in digital form, you can order that here too. All of the stuff that is currently produced, you will get right away as soon as the Kickstarter is over and as soon as the money transfers. Probably it's usually about a week or so after the end of the Kickstarter. You will get access to the original Fantastic Adventures and the Fantastic Adventures art books and Fantastic Locations and the Fantastic Location art book. So all of that will become available right away, and you'll get the digital version of Ruins of the Grendleroot when that comes out. Again, late this year, early next year. I think I said March 2020, but it'll probably be sooner than that. And then the last one is the all-in. If you want all of the old books and the new book, and you want print-on-demand options for all of those books, the last tier can get you all of that. I priced these last 2 tiers so that if you have one of the books already, it is still worthwhile to get the other book. It's actually cheaper to get the old book and the old art book through these pledges than it would be if you ordered them directly. So these are pretty good deals. And that was my goal, is to make it a pretty good deal. So those are the 4 tiers. I tried to keep it as simple as possible. I want to make it as easy as possible for people to understand what they're getting and to get it. So that's the Kickstarter itself. But we want to talk about the book itself. So, oh, and hello, everybody. I see Dyson187 is here, Brain Clouds is here, and Animus Maelstrom is here. So thank you all very much for coming, and thanks to everybody that is watching. Again, if you have any questions, any thoughts, things you see that you want to hear more about, please jump in and let me know what you are curious about. L Tasty Free says, OMG. I don't know what you're oh my godding about. Gondolar, hello. I think Gondolar is on their morning show. So what is Ruins of the Grendleroot? So Ruins of the Grendleroot is a book of 10 short adventures for 5th edition D&D. They are built primarily to be easy to digest and easy to run. If you are familiar with the original Fantastic Adventures book, you will be familiar with these. And they are, their sole design is to help DMs run D&D games. That's what they're built for. They are built around the idea that it is hard for people to get groups together, and sometimes short adventures that are self-contained are easier for people to run with than great big long campaign adventures. I'm a big fan of big campaign adventures. I run them all. I love them. They're great. I'm running more of them all the time. I can't wait till they come out. Not everybody has the privileges that I have to be able to get a regular group together and be able to play through a long campaign. For some people, it's I've got some friends together and we just want to play. For some people, it's I've really not played before and I don't want to make this big commitment. So the idea behind this is you can grab an adventure and go. And we'll talk about the adventure that is available right now for free on the Kickstarter website. I will, just in case anybody hasn't seen it, I will paste it in the Twitch channel for Twitch folks. This is a, 21-page preview that includes the full introduction of the book plus one free adventure that you can run right tonight, level 1 adventure. So making it easy for people to run games was paramount. And then with this book in particular, I wanted to have a general theme that was flexible enough that people can drop it into their own campaign worlds, but still was thematic enough that it kind of differentiated these adventures from other ones you may find. And the idea behind that was everything takes place inside one big mountain in these adventures. All 10 adventures and everything else that's involved in this book takes place in a mountain known as Black Claw. And the idea behind that is if you are running any campaign in any fantasy world, you can probably drop a mountain somewhere in your fantasy world. And now you can have all of these adventures take place inside that mountain. I wrote an article about this, or one of the posts on the Kickstarter, about how you can incorporate Ruins of the Grendleroot into your own campaign. And it really comes down to two interesting sort of views. One is you can drop this mountain just about anywhere in your fantasy world, and it won't disrupt anything. Adding an additional mountain to a world is usually not too difficult. But the mountain itself can be nearly infinite in the things that you can fit inside. So any subterranean stuff you want to add, you can add it into this mountain. So it gives you both the flexibility to drop it in easily into a campaign, plus the flexibility to add anything you want that's in there. And I'm very happy with that, with how that has been turning out. All of the adventures are levels 1 to 5, including 5th level adventures. So the idea is if you were to play through, 6 or 7, as few as 5 of these adventures, but maybe 6 or 7 of these adventures, you would definitely hit 6th level by the end of them. I could have probably gone to higher levels with this, but I wanted to ensure that any of the adventures can be pulled out and played separately, and played as a one-shot game for level 1 to 5 characters. So Fantastic Adventures, I generally aimed them all at that, anywhere within that tier, generally about level 3. Some of them were a little harder, some were a little easier, but generally it was like, well, you can tweak these to make it level 1 to 5. And you can tweak these adventures as well, but they are tuned for a particular level. So there's one first level adventure, that's the one, Call of Starsong Tower, which is included in the preview. If you go right here, this is a level 1 adventure, a 2-hour level 1 adventure intended to take characters to level 2 right away. I believe, I'm a firm believer that you should get characters to level 2 as much as you can. So this whole adventure right here in this free preview can take characters from first level and get them to second level. And then all of the other adventures are tuned. There's about 2 to 3 per level. So there's a couple for level 2. I think there's about 3 for level 3, a couple for level 4, and about is that 3 for level 5? Something like that. There's some breakout. I think I think all of these describe them. So, and I'll go over all the adventures too, but you can read summaries of all these. So we have a first level adventure. We have two second levels, 3 thirds, 2 fourths, and I think it's 2 fifths. Yeah, that's about right. So there's 3 thirds, and then there's 2 of all the others in one first level adventure. So it gives you enough. And if you were to, if you're running like a slower progression campaign, you could run someone through all 10 of these adventures before they hit 6th level. That's probably a little bit much. So my intention is that you're probably going to maybe skip 1 or 2 of them that don't grab you. Like I don't expect all 10 adventures are going to be useful for every group, or they're gonna grab every group. So you can kind of skip the ones you don't like. The other one is, unlike Fantastic Adventures, there is a set of 5 of these that you can combine together. I think I have a section on this. The Grendleroot Campaign Arc. There are 5 adventures: Call of Starsong Tower, Spire of Violet Falls, Shatter, the White Queen, and Seed of the Black Cathedral, that are around a general campaign arc of the Grendleroot. What is the Grendleroot? And sort of exploring the Grendleroot. And it goes all the way from kind of learning learning about the weird nature of the Grendleroot spires all the way down to actually, spoiler, seeing the Grendleroot. And that is a fun set of almost individual chapters, but they can take you through the whole campaign. So what the hell is a Grendleroot? That's probably a big question. And the answer is there's a whole section on it. But one of the things is that ideally you get to define what the Grendleroot is in your campaign. And I offer a lot of different suggestions about what it is. But I also have sort of a default. If you don't want to go through the effort of figuring out what the Grendleroot is yourself as a DM, I have an idea in mind. And the idea behind the Grendleroot is that it is an otherworldly sentient seed that was being investigated by these very old, very powerful beings in an asteroid in the astral plane. And they could only study it isolated in the astral plane because they knew it was terribly, terribly dangerous. The sentient seed would grow and grow and grow and grow. So they built this, kind of ship that examined the seed. But then something happened and it ripped through the fabric of the astral plane and crashed down to the world, whatever world you happen to be on. And when it did so, those beings sort of disappeared. And the seed was still sort of encapsulated because this ship, this object, which is more like a meteor, it still didn't let the Grendleroot go completely free, but it let it go a little free. And the Grendleroot started to grow. And when it grows, you can think of it like growing like a weed. Although instead of being organic, it actually grows as these large black metal spires, these big spikes. And the cover shows an example of one of the Grendleroot spikes. That thing right in the center is a Grendleroot spike. I have another. Let me pull up another picture here. I got a good one here. Yeah, here's another one. Oh, that didn't work. What's going on here? My thing is screwed up. There is one. I think there's a picture in the book itself. Closing that window. Something went goofy with that window. There is another one. So that's a smaller one. That's about a 5 or 6 foot one, but sometimes they're 20, 30 feet. And they all look sort of like thorns sticking out of the ground or a claw sticking out of the ground. But one thing that the adventurers will discover when they go through this campaign is that they can be shaped like many things. There is one area where, let's see if I can pull that one up. There was one area where they appear like ferns or trees. So they look sort of organic, but then when you actually deal with them, they are anything but organic. They are actually unbreakable. They look like iron. They're like black iron, except they are completely unbreakable and you cannot bend them or scrape them or scratch them or chip them. They are impervious to all damage. And thus, even if you have a tiny thin blade of a leaf of one, it will cut your finger off before you'll be able to push that leaf anywhere. So that creates a whole bunch of different problems, including the fact that when they grow, the mountain basically crumbles around them. And that can be a big problem. Yeah, so here is an area where the Grendleroot spires are growing considerably. There's a couple of, Grendleroot spires growing up, and you see a whole bunch sort of growing up here. And this one is actually a giant sort of Grendleroot tree that is actually holding up a cavern. This is the artwork for one of the adventures called Shatter. And and down here is like a whole fern grove filled with Grendleroot ferns. And if you fall in them, you'll just get shredded to nothing because they don't bend, even though they're super sharp. And then here's even a giant skull. This artwork is all done by Jack Kaiser. Jack Kaiser is a veteran fantasy artist who has worked on numerous products, but you can see a lot of his work in Robert Schwab's Shadow of the Demon Lord book. And I just fell in love with his style. And he did the cover for Ruins of the Grendleroot. He did the cover for Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master. And he is doing all of the location art in Ruins of the Grendleroot. So all of the pieces that you see in here, the piece that you see in the lower right pane is one of his as well. That's actually an early draft. He's still finishing that one up. But I love it as is. It looks pretty great. So we're going to see a lot of really great work, art from him. So that's what the Grendleroot. It's this big root, and there are many adventures that surround sort of things going on with the Grendleroot. There's one adventure where an old blind priest has figured out how to blow up Grendleroot spires, and he wants to go down into this area and blow up this pillar, which will collapse much of the mountain. He thinks that it is evil and needs to be destroyed, and he is the only one who has spent his entire life studying it and figured out that there is some way to destroy it, and he wants to use it. In another one, the Grendleroot sort of starts to wake up, and as it does, it grows and starts to create these big earthquakes. And there's only one being in the entire mountain who knows how to quiet it, and that is a vampire who is currently sleeping. And the party has to go and wake up the vampire and ask it nicely to help quiet the Grendleroot. So there's a couple of adventures like that. There is the final adventure in this campaign. The final adventure in this book is called The Black Cathedral, in which the characters chase down a villain who wants to try to take control of the Grendleroot, thinks she has figured out how to take control of the Grendleroot. And they go down to the lair of those super intelligent beings to stop her from getting a hold of the seed of the Grendleroot, which is an artifact that can control the Grendleroot. I actually have a picture of the villain here. Arana Helivax is her name. Let's see, Art Finals. There we go. That is her. The other artwork, so some of the character artwork is all by Brian Syme. Brian is a veteran. Let's see. There we go. He is another veteran artist for fantasy role-playing games. He has done a lot of work for Kobold Press. So if you are familiar with the Tome of Beasts or the Midgard campaign setting, you are familiar with Brian Syme's artwork. And he has done numerous character portraits for this book. That is Balin the Beardless, one of the elders of Deep Delver's Enclave, which I will describe in a moment. And I love this artwork. This is actually one of the NPCs that was in the original Fantastic Locations or Fantastic Adventures. This is Ruth Willowmane, who was once the sheriff of White Sparrow. She has since retired and gone down to the mountain. And there's an adventure involving her and a couple of elven assassins who are hunting her down. And the party has to try to help save her from getting killed by these elven assassins. So it's a fun. I enjoyed bringing her back into the story. She was always one of my favorite characters in the original one, and I'm excited to bring her back in this one as well. So I described what the Grendleroot is. So one of the other things about this book, and when I think about like what makes this book different, one of them is there's lots of adventures now, but many people don't have, because of the small print runs or the small amount of sales that they typically get, they can't afford some of the editing and design and artwork and everything that full publications can offer. And thanks to the support that Sly Flourish has gotten, I am able to afford that in order to put this together. And thanks to the Kickstarter and all of the people backing the Kickstarter, we can really make it good. So what you'll find is short adventures. These are all about 5,000 words. So they're about half the size of a typical 4-hour adventure that you might find on something like the DM's Guild. And that design, they are condensed that way on purpose to make them easily digestible. But they are edited by Scott Fitzgerald Gray. Scott edits many of the hardback adventures for Wizards of the Coast. Scott and I have worked together now on numerous projects together. And he's just a fantastic editor. He understands this industry, understands this subject matter really, really well. And it means that the text that you're going to read in these adventures is really tight and we have gone over it a lot. The artwork, as you have seen, Jack Kaiser and Brian Syme are the two main artists for this book, both of them industry veterans that are really bringing these whole places to life. I really believe that the artwork for this book and for these adventures is critical to build the atmosphere of what this place looks like. It wouldn't work if it was just text. And the design, Mark Radel, who is a designer that works often, he's the art director for this product, and he's also does art direction for Kobold Press. He both did the art direction for this and the design. So the whole design that you see in this book is from him. And Scott Gray is also, on top of doing the editing, is also doing the layout. And a nice feature about that, a good advantage, besides he's very skilled, is that when your editor is also doing your layout, he can do the edits in place, and it reduces the number of editing cycles that go back and forth. So you would typically have the editor look at a product, offers a lot of general topics, then very specific. Then the text is done. The text goes to layout, and then when it's in layout, it goes back through myself, the designer, to read again and say how this works, and then I pass it back to the editor, who then makes any other tweaks, and then back to the layout person who makes those tweaks. There's a lot of back and forth, but when you have your editor and your layout person are the same person, they can make all of the edits in place while they're doing layout or in sequence with layout, and it reduces the cycles that are going on. So Dyson 187 says, does it by chance include any pre-made characters or suggested party combos to further expedite the quick nature of these? It does. In fact, they are designed. It's a great question. Thank you. And they are designed to use the exact same character pre-gens. And I will paste this into the list here. The original Fantastic Adventures pre-gens work perfectly well in Ruins of the Grendleroot. So these pre-gens, there's one pre-gen for every class. And they all, on the character sheet, they all go from level 1 to level 5. So in just these sheets, you have a full level 1 to level 5 character, which means you can run every adventure in this book with just these sheets. And you can just hand them to the players and they're ready to go, whichever one you want to run at whatever level you want to run. And as you see, like if you look at hit points, it shows you exactly how many hit points you have at any level. So when you hand them to your players, they can circle that level and they have everything they need. Same way with like skills, all of their skills are set up. Their attacks, it kind of says like when you're at level whatever, what is it? And then one feature of these new sheets is that they also include all of the spell descriptions that the characters would have, which means your players don't even need to have a player's handbook to be able to run those characters. They can run directly from the text of the character sheets. The blank pages in here are designed so that you can just feed this entire PDF set to a printer and tell it print double-sided, and it will print you full double-sided character sheets for everything. And again, it has every class race. These are all OGL. These are all SRD compliant. So they follow the OGL, which means all of the spells and all of the class abilities and everything like that are in the they are in the OGL, which means that you only get the one character build. So, for example, the fighter is a champion fighter. The cleric is a cleric of life. The druid is a circle of the whatever it is, circle of the land, I think is the one. So it's whatever the SRD allows is what is in these characters. But every one of them, again, like the druid sheet has the spell list, but then also the exact spells that the druid has. So really, I think I've heard yesterday, I was at a convention and a friend of mine who was running all of the D&D stuff at the convention said that these are by far the most useful pre-gen sheets he has seen. And I don't even think he saw the ones that had the spells in them. So I built these because I wanted them to be useful for me, and I want D&D to be easy to play. I really want people to be able to just bring your copy of the book and bring a set of pre-gens and throw it in your bag, and your players are ready to play for 40 hours worth of material with just the stuff that's here. You don't need anything else, and I think that's I'm pretty close. I'm pretty happy with, and I'm pretty close to getting that with these. One feature, so it's great that the Fantastic Adventures character sheets work already. These, by the way, were developed by D&D veteran James Intercasso. He actually put all of the material together for these, and then the design was done by Eric Nowak. Eric has done the design work of the original Fantastic Adventures and also Fantastic Locations and the original Lazy Dungeon Master. So he put it together. It was very funny because he was sitting at my game yesterday. He and his daughter were playing at a play test we did of Ruins of the Grendleroot. And he had these sheets, and I said, how ironic is it that I handed him a character sheet that he actually designed for everybody else? So these are free right now. You can download these and use these, today. 60 pages of pre-generated characters ready to go. If you feed all 60 pages to your printer and feed it and tell it to go double-sided, it will print the whole thing double-sided, and it's ready to go. So one feature that we are going to, I'm hoping it's one of the stretch goals for this, is that, again, D&D luminary and veteran James Intercasso has offered to make 2 new character backgrounds specifically designed for Ruins of the Grendleroot. And those backgrounds include Deep Delver, which is a background where you are one who just loves to explore the ruins of these mountains. Or this mountain. You just love finding out what's down there. And that is a core of your being, is delving deep into the mountain below. And the other one is Grendleroot Sage. And your background is that you are trying to study the origin of the Grendleroot and understand the power that it has brought to the world. So those are 2 backgrounds that really any of the characters can pick. And they both of them encompass the drive of these adventures, that, the excitement of exploration and discovery on one side, and the other side of understanding the mysteries of the power behind this mountain. So I really hope we hit those stretch goals. We're on track for them, so I think that will be great. But yeah, I think they will be a really good addition to the pre-gen characters, and we will add those background and the sheets for them in the character sheet packet, so that they'll be available to everybody. You can just download it and get it to go. Oh man, I've been talking and talking and talking. Again, if you are in Twitch chat and you have any questions, please send any questions that you have about this. We can steer this conversation wherever it is useful and wherever it goes. Let's see. Dyson187 said, I might have to pivot to these for a bit since my group has become inconsistent. Yeah, so it's just handy. And they're nice and open. They do have a race class build. So sometimes it's like, oh, I really wanted to be that race with this class. And there's, that's a hard thing to deal with, other than you can go to D&D Beyond and build a pre-gen character with any of the races and classes that are available in the SRD. So, and you could do that for free and print that out. So if people have a particular racing class, we tried to mix up the racing classes, and they're not 100% optimal, but they're close enough that I think the pre-gens people have been pretty happy with them. So let's see. I talked about, I've got my little outline of things that we've talked about. So I talked about the desire for these adventures to do the heavy lifting. Like, how do these adventures relate to the philosophy behind Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master? And as you can imagine, since I have written both, that they come from a similar philosophy. And one of the keys is the key behind Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master is to make it as easy as possible for DMs to prepare for their games. And the design of Fantastic Adventures and Ruins of the Grendleroot is to do that heavy lifting for you. My goal with this book is to spend a year working really hard to make it easier for you to be able to play games. So I want to do that heavy lifting for you. I want to spend those hours and hours and hours of time giving you material that you can use in a few minutes and run a great game. So again, if we look at the structure and the outline of these adventures, if you are familiar with Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master and the 8 steps of Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master, you will see many parallels between them. But one difference is this is not designed to be the outline of those 8 steps, because the design of the 8 steps is to make it easy. And if I built these around those easy steps, I wouldn't be doing any work for you, right? Like, I'm not helping you in that case. Better is, which of those steps need material that is hard. So imagine, for example, there wasn't a monster manual. There weren't any statistics for monsters, and all you had was knowledge and some instructions on making monsters. And every time you wanted to run a D&D game, and you wanted to put in a monster, you'd have to build that monster. You'd say like, oh, I want to throw skeletons in. Well, let me figure out what the attributes of skeletons are and how many hit points they have and what kind of damage they do and any special features and immunities. It takes, as people who have developed monsters for 5th edition, even simple monsters can take you an hour to make, right? And that's without really any play testing and without any other really rich, any other, any other work, like any other refinement. But luckily we have the monster manual, right? Wizards of the Coast made a monster manual, and hundreds of thousands of people play tested those monsters, and they're all well designed, well play tested. A lot of care and thought went into the design of those monsters. So now they have done the heavy lifting for us, right? We don't need to figure out the statistics of a pit fiend. We have a pit fiend. We don't need to figure out the statistics of a cultist or a cult fanatic, 2 of my favorite stat blocks, by the way, because we have it. So if you need a cultist, you've got a cultist. Look on the back and there's the cultist, right? If you need an aboleth, you've got an aboleth, and you don't have to figure out what an aboleth is. But that's great for monsters. But what about locations? What about story seeds and ideas? What about NPCs? What are the other areas where we can do the heavy lifting? And having run many published adventures now over the past, for decades, but 5th edition adventures, I've basically been playing all of the hardback adventures since they started coming out. I think I've played every. The only one I haven't is Dungeon of the Mad Mage, but I played everything else. And the reason why I play them is because they do the heavy lifting for me. There's beautiful artwork, there's story ideas, there's maps, there's lots of puzzles and designs and everything else. And I expect those adventures to, when I'm paying the money to buy one of those, I'm expecting it to help me, and they do. They, recently I've been running a homebrew game 1 day a week and a published adventure another day of the same week. And I can tell for myself, and this isn't true for everybody, and I know there's a debatable topic on this, but for myself, the published adventure always helps me out. I have to read it and grok it and understand it and internalize it. But once I do, it's so much easier because I don't have to worry about so much of this stuff. Just like I don't have to design a monster every time I want one. I don't have to think about the layer of the map, or I don't have to think up, NPCs. And I always change them. And the expectation by almost all of the authors of these adventures is that you're going to change them. Sometimes they don't say it explicitly. Every so often there's like a little 1 or 2 lines. I will say that Ruins of the Grendleroot is really designed for you to make it your own. One of the people who has backed the campaign and played Call of Starsong Tower sent me an email today. And they said, I just ran Call of Starsong Tower. I up-leveled it to level 5 or 4 or 5, and it took 7 hours. And I was like, holy cow, it's a level 1 adventure. You took it to level 5. But great. Like, that's awesome. Like, the fact that he took this adventure and modified it so heavily that it was for like level 5 characters and it took 7 hours. I'm glad. Like, I don't know how valuable it was. Like, what did he use and what did he throw away? Because that's a very different adventure. But my hope is that all of these will be like that you can completely change them into anything you want. You throw in your own story seeds, you throw in your own monsters, you can take everything out of this. And there are many, many, many different ways to take the pieces of these adventures and the pieces of this book and use them in your own. So anyway, kind of getting back to the design, we have, this is all pretty standard stuff, and it's standard for a reason, and that's to make it easy for you. I'm not going to go with some crazy ass new format that people can't understand, right? I wanted to try to stay. I had some experimental ideas that I tried out, and I brought on some advisors to help me think through those steps. And what they all kind of came down to is steering back towards just keep it basic. Like, we don't want, don't make life hard with new crazy stuff. So I said, okay, well, so we have a little bit of new crazy stuff, but most of the time it's a pretty straightforward thing. So adventure summary, a nice short summary that tells you what the adventure is about. I list the monsters and NPCs that might be available in this adventure. If you like your maps and miniatures, this is a way to kind of figure out what miniatures you might need in order to run this adventure. I have some notable NPCs. These are NPCs that show up during the adventure and are important enough for you to kind of read about who they are and their backgrounds and alignments and origins, and in some cases stat blocks that you might want to pull out. So there's a big section on NPCs. As you know, in Return to the Lazy Dungeon Master, of the steps, notable NPCs is one of those steps. Secrets and clues will also be familiar to the people who follow the checklist for Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master. The difference here is these are all specific about the adventure itself and where it sort of sits in the world. So that it doesn't have any character-focused secrets in here. My expectation is you're probably going to want to add your own secrets too, based on the group that you've got, and based on any changes that you're going to make. So this is one area where, again, secrets and clues often take the longest in game prep. So I wanted to kind of make it easy. This one actually has a lot of secrets and clues. But the other idea is like this sort of tells you what's going on in the adventure in a summarized format and in a way that makes it important for the characters. So any one of these are things that characters could learn. And if they're important enough for the character to learn it, that means it's important enough in the adventure. It means that the design of this adventure is really based on a character-focused approach. What is going to matter to them, and what will they learn that will matter to them? Not this, giant history. There's a lot of history in these adventures too, and one of the stretch goals even expands that quite further. But rather than worrying about pontificating the 1,000-year history of the magocracy of the Black Star, let's drop in pieces in here that kind of teach the characters about who the Order of the White Sun is and who the magocracy of the Black Star were and what they're like, So yeah, there's a whole thing about like the origin of the tower itself has a bit more history. And this is a little long. Usually they do not have this. This is in here mostly because I wanted this adventure to be a standalone adventure. But typically the adventures don't have this much backstory because the backstory is kind of wrapped up in everything else. And then you have your strong start. In this case, it's a little bit of a monologue from Balin the Beardless, who sort of talks to the party and says, so you want to be an adventurer? Well, I've got a job for you. And he talks about the tower and what's going on. This is also a little big when it comes to read aloud text. I kind of get that. From a DM's perspective, you can read it while you're reading the adventure and then internalize it and then make it faster or make it more palatable to your group. But it is also a way that if you really just want to jump in with a one-shot adventure, you can read this aloud. People get the idea of what's going on and they're ready to go. This one's a little different than the other ones. The other ones often have a strong start of like, a sinkhole appears in the middle of the enclave and gnome zombies come pouring out. So then we have adventure hooks. These are ways to draw the characters into the adventure. What makes them want to work here? And a big one is they are members of the Enclave and they want to help the Enclave. That is a strong hook that exists throughout all of these. But then there's other things like the desire to explore a feature, or one of the NPCs that went missing is somebody that the characters know. So there's options for figuring that out. There's that can all work here. And then there's always this this underlying what is the Grendleroot and people that are talking to the Grendleroot. And then we have the location itself. And these adventures, the structure of these adventures are heavily focused on the locations that you explore. Every one of them has a pretty big, fantastic location for the characters to explore. That's kind of the main drive of these adventures, is the idea of exploration and discovery. So that format you see often. And if you think about fantastic locations and the idea in Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master, you see that here as well. So each of these, we use area aspects so that if you don't want to read through a big layer of text, you can kind of figure out what are the important pieces of this particular location that as a DM you need to internalize. So it's very refined up here, but then it gets bigger, and then of course has read aloud text that describes what it looks like. So if you want to just read it aloud, you can. If you want to skip the read aloud text, the area aspects are like a short way to sort of internalize what's there. Every section might have a creature area that talks about what creature is there. There is a good mixture of all three of the pillars of exploration, role-playing, and combat. So in this case, like there's a gargoyle, but the gargoyle is not really somebody you fight. It's somebody that just kind of gives you some crap. And then, so another one, when I talk about like what these adventures offer, Elven Tower, a wonderful cartographer, in our world here, in the world of fantasy RPGs. Elven Tower, I commissioned Elven Tower to do all of the maps for this book. So he is doing 11 full color maps that look like this. And I have, I can show a few others as well. Map finals. And we're already good underway. We have 7 of the 11 maps are already complete. So we're making good progress here. So this is the map of Deep Delver's Enclave itself. And I'm going to take a bit of time and talk about Deep Delver's Enclave. But we wanted to have a nice, big, beautiful map for that. Let's see. This is the Forgotten God. Temple of the Forgotten God. Some of these are big, so it takes a while to load. So one of the nice things about this, while we're sitting here waiting for this map to load, one of the nice things about these maps, we have crossed the first stretch goal for the Kickstarter, which means that every backer of the Kickstarter is going to get the map pack, a big zip file with high resolution versions of all of these maps included in their reward. And these maps, like, you can see the level of detail that you get in these maps. They are suitable for use in Roll20 and Fantasy Grounds. I actually sent the ones that I got, the 7 that I've got, over to FedEx Kinko's, and had them printed on 11 by 17 paper, and they're beautiful. So these are all nice high res. They are designed to fit on a to fit directly like into Roll20. Let me see. I'll pull up another one here. There's Violet Falls. This is the one I ran as a playtest yesterday. So, nice features in these. Here's an interesting one. This one actually has a few different locations that you visit. So this is one where you can kind of use them as more of a battle map style approach. Here is Shatter. Shatter is that piece of art that I am showing no, that's not the one in the lower right. But if you remember that piece that I showed before, I don't think, this guy. This is the artwork for Shatter, and this is the map for Shatter. That's that fern grove over there that's filled with Grendleroot stuff. And let's see, Chul. I have an adventure called Chul. I just like it. It's kind of my version of Jaws. And guess what you're fighting? A Chul. So many of the design of these locations, they are built around roughly somewhere between 7 and 10 locations that you can explore, and there is a heavy focus on like exploring these places and seeing what's going on. So they can be short-circuited, and it's kind of up to the DM to figure out how to tune the adventure around the time that you've got. So I don't know that all of them can fit into a 2-hour game, but in many cases you can trim them down and sort of short circuit the adventure to make it like a 2-hour adventure, a nice quick 2-hour adventure. And then you can add more encounters or sort of move things around in order to extend them into a longer pack. Gondolar says, will there be a way to get the map pack and other digital content for the stretch goals after the Kickstarter has ended? Kickstarter still only accept credit cards, which would be a problem for some folks. Yes, the map pack will be available on Drive-Thru RPG. There will be a way to get it separately. It may come with the art book. I may bundle it together with the art book. So I'll figure out a way to make sure that it's available one way or the other. It probably won't come with the main book, but I think that the art book and the art book, I think the art book is our next stretch goal. So we're on our way to getting that art book. And that way you get a nice art book that you in PDF, and then you get all the maps and everything in a separate one. So yes, there will be a way. There will be a way to get that. So all of the maps have this kind of, and there's a few design philosophies behind these things. One is that they're relatively short. You're not going to find a 30 or 40 room place in this. You will find there are about 7 to 11 major locations, and there's some minor locations that they can explore. Every map has more than one way to reach it. So you can actually, the characters have, if you look at these, I guess I loaded them all over the same one, didn't I? That was not smart. I guess, yeah, so Shatter, it's got to load every time. So, yeah, there's multiple paths that the characters can take every time they want to come in. That was something that I wanted to make, I wanted to design around. They're not linear. The characters get choices about how they're going to approach things. If we go back to this one, for example, the characters can enter through a underground tunnel that leads to the cellar, or they can come in the front door here, or they can even climb and go into the roof. But for Starsong Tower, for example, you kind of have to go through all of it eventually. You just get to pick which way you want to go. Wiley Hobbit says, I really like the modular feel for this. I could drop this into about any setting game I have going. That appeals to me. Yes, that is its goal. Its goal is that you can drop it in easy. There is no campaign setting here. Well, that's not quite true. So it is designed so that you can drop it in, and it is also designed so that you can slice off the whole story element and throw it away and add in your own story element. That's how it's expected. If you think about like optional and requirements, the optional stuff is all of the lore. You can add your own lore. But that said, one of the things I do want to do, one of the stretch goals is, if we go back to, let me pull up another map here. And let me talk about Deep Delver's Enclave as well. I think that's, oh, I didn't mean to do that. Let's go back. Let's open a new window here. So if you look at, this is Deep Delver's Enclave. So I'm going to talk about Deep Delver's Enclave for a second, then I'll get to the city of Shadowreach. So Deep Delver's Enclave is the central hub for all of these adventures. Your adventurers start here. And Deep Delver's Enclave is I actually just finished. I don't know if it's going to load. So I have a Word version of this, so we'll see what this does. Yeah, it didn't like that. So let's see if I can save as. Is there a way to save as PDF? Other formats. I can't save it as PDF. That's a bummer. What if I was to print it? File, print. Microsoft Print to PDF. And we'll stick it on the desktop. Sorry. Look at that. All right. So this is my raw. If you want to see what it looks like raw, this is the raw copy of Deep Delver's Enclave. And so Deep Delver's Enclave is the hub. Sorry, that was really long. I'm sorry about that. Deep Delver's Enclave is the hub of all of these adventures. And the goal of Deep Delver's Enclave, and I have sort of a section here on the truths of Deep Delver's Enclave. It is a shining beacon in the dark. It is a nice place to visit. And it's a place, like one of the philosophies I had is it was a place you want to go. Like, I want to go and live here. I think it would be great. And when I talked to, we actually have a piece of artwork for it. This is a picture of Deep Delver's Enclave. And that behind there, you see a Starsong Tower. And I wanted to build a place that was like a really cheerful town that is sort of a frontier town where, it's not this dark, dismal place. Like, everybody there is happy. There are parties here all the time. I have a section in this. This is the chapter about Deep Delver's Enclave. And, there's a whole section on all of the festivals that are going on in this place. Like, there's parties here happening all the time. So if you want to start, and if people who have read Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master recognize, like, the one thing about a strong start is that it starts with an event, and this is 20 events that take place in here. 20 different events that you can throw in for your adventure. So when we look at the 5 truths, is shining beacon in the dark, that this is a nice place to go. That's in the middle of this ancient mountain in this big cavern. Deep Delver's Enclave is in a big cavern, right? It is, everything in this adventure is underground, including this whole plateau is in a giant cavern. But it is a nice place, and you can always hear the sound of music that's kind of echoing out through the ruins of the city below. There's everybody there has a love of exploration. They love being here. There's a lot of support people here that are kind of farming and everything like that, but they are all about finding the unknown and exploring the unknown of the mountain. That's why they're here. There's adventure everywhere. That in every one of the descriptions, and I'll show some of the descriptions of the places in Deep Delver's Enclave, there's always room for another little adventure. It is a place of peaceful cooperation. They don't have laws. They don't have a government. They don't have any sort of ruling body. Everybody is kind of there working together to explore the mountain. So it's sort of a peaceful collective. They do have elders. Balin the Beardless, for example, who I showed before. Balin the Beardless is an example of one of the elders that people kind of respect him, but there's no hierarchy, right? He's not the boss. He doesn't tell people what to do. He might hire adventurers, and everybody's available for hire, but that's where it goes. So peaceful cooperation, and they're surrounded by mystery. The black spires of the Grendleroot are right around them, and there's always kind of worry about what are they going to move or what's going to happen. So some bad things happen to Deep Delver's Enclave in the adventures, but none of them destroy it. So that sense of mystery is always there. Whole section on the NPCs, the main NPCs that are here, and then a whole section on the locations. And examples of the locations, like the Dragon's Fangs, which is in that picture. Dragon's Fangs. I'm not sure if that's the Dragon's Fangs. I think that's a different place. The Lucky Loot Tavern, Ravenclaw Inn, Odra's Library, the Evershadow Bazaar, the Drop, the All Faith Shrine, Strawsong Tower, which you've seen, the Mushroom Lake. These are all of these... Mushroom Lake is over here. That's how they get fed, all that stuff. But if we look at some of these, like we'll look at the Evershadow Bazaar. The idea is there's a bunch of shops, and some people come and go here temporarily. Like people from the outside will come and sell their wares here, and other people stay there. But one note is like you can get, even though it's like this narrow place and there's not that many shops, if you walk through the alleyways, you start to get lost. And then eventually you end up at this weird onion-topped circular shop called Ian's Curios. And that's sort of like the shady vendor, right? And he only wants you to get there if he wants you to get there. So you can sort of get lost there, right? And there's always notes of strange things. Odra's Library is a 3-story library, but inside there seems to be a mysterious 4th story that holds all sorts of forbidden tomes. The Ravenclaw Inn, is carved out of a large a large natural column, but down in the lowest level, there's a large brass circular door covered with arcane glyphs, and no one, Mila, who owns the place, she might know what's there, but she's not talking. Every place has like a little bit of adventure in it. The Lucky Loot Tavern has a statue of a bard playing a lute, and it actually plays music, but people notice that the expression on his face isn't necessarily one of joy, but one of anguish. So that is, there's adventure in every one of these, even though these are just like the places that you go visit in between the main adventures. There's little bits of adventures here too. And I just want to have this sense that there's adventures in everyone, Deep Fingers, right? So the southern edge, if you look at the map, where's the map? Right, there's this big rift right on the edge that goes down 5,000 feet below. And there's all of these little caves and tunnels down there. And, if we describe in the description of it that it's 500 feet below, and there's rope bridges, caves, tunnels, and passages leading into the heart of the mountain. And some have said that the deeper you go into these, the more powerful, the greater the discoveries you find and the greater the danger. This is your level 1 to 20 dungeon sitting right on the edge of Deep Delver's Enclave. So beyond all of the adventures that you have in here, there's this whole rift. And I've actually got a whole other, sort of 1 to 20 mega dungeon in another area that we can find. So one of the stretch goals I want to have, if you notice, the map has this other ruined city below. This is all a cliffside. Deep Delver's Enclave sits on this plateau, and below is this ruined city. And the name of that city is Shadowreach. And Shadowreach was a city ruled over by 9 mages that were known as the Magocracy of the Black Star. You can see one of the statues of the 9 mages in the back. And one of the stretch goals I want to write, that I'm hoping we'll get to, is a chapter about the history of Shadowreach. So what's in that ruined city below, and who used to rule it, and who are the 9 mages, and what's their history. And again, that will be all filled with lots of lore and lots of stuff that you can sort of grab on for your game. But again, like, you can also throw that whole history away and add in your own history, right? It's all designed to, to be completely digestible, as Wily Hobbit says, reusable in many different ways. That my goal is that you can really fit this into your campaign. BrainCloud says, personal curiosity, how long did it take you to come up with the planned adventures and create all of the content before editing and art? So I spent, I don't have it in hours, but I can tell you that it took about 2 or 3 months of planning, where I actually, I pitched my wife 30 adventure ideas. So I kind of started to get the idea about what Grendleroot was and what the mount was like. But I had all, it was pretty vague, right? And it's all just me talking and writing stuff in text editors and then talking about it with my wife on walks. And But then I actually said, okay, I'm going to write 30 adventure pitches. And an adventure pitch would be like a 2 or 3 sentence description of an adventure. And then my wife and I would sit and I would pitch them to her and tell her what they were like. And she would give them a rating of like 1 to 10, like how much did she like it? And the ones that she liked, she's very smart and she has played many, many D&D games, and she doesn't give me any crap. And she recognizes that my, not everything that comes out of me is fantastic, right? So it was really good to get feedback on what sounded interesting, what sounded like something that a player would want to play. And then I also kind of thought about it myself. Which ones do I like the best too? So I kind of went through the 30 adventure pitches and then came up with what I thought and what both of us thought were the best 10. And then I might have had up to 12, really. I think I kept a couple of extras just in case the 10 turned out not to be that great. And then I wrote descriptions of those, and I brought on a group of advisors. These were people like my wife who know the kind of things that I do. They might have been fans of Fantastic Adventures previously. They are very experienced in this hobby of ours. And they will be critical of my work, right? But they'll be critical of my work, but they won't be jealous of my work. So they want me to succeed. They're not threatened by it. And they'll also tell me the truth and be like, that isn't any good. And I pitched the same set of pitches, but I think they were extended at that point to the advisors. And in fact, I think they got outlines of the adventures, like full outlines of the adventures. And I got a lot of feedback from them about that's not going to work like you think it's going to work. Or that's going to be really trouble. Or you're really going to have to work this out. And that meant that early on in the drafts, I was ready. So I think that happened probably after my main writing pile. And my main writing pile happened in March of this past year. I took 3 weeks off from work. And I had it ready to go. I knew what I was going to write. And my goal was to write a chapter of the book every day. It was about 5,000 words a day. And I holed up and wrote my 5,000 words. And then if I had any time left over, I'd do a little bit of research or look at other things or try to just keep my head in that space. And then the next day I would write the next one. And the next day I'd write the next one. And I did that over a period of about 12 days. And then with the remaining days that I had in that sabbatical, I went back and started to tweak it. So by the end of the sabbatical, I had a fully written first draft of basically the whole book, except for a couple of chapters that are part of the stretch goals. And then since March, I have been periodically cycling through every one of them and editing them myself, doing the first draft edit. So I have a second draft, and now I'm starting on a third draft of a few of them. And a lot of refinement is happening in these later drafts. So a long time. So I basically, your question is how long did it take you? It's probably all of this year so far. I've been working on it for about 6 months. Right at the end of Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master shipping was when I started to think about this. And it started very hazy and then has gotten closer. And now that's Scott Gray. So Scott Gray, of course, he's the lead editor on this book. And along with the advice that I got from the advisors, Scott really dove deep into these 2 chapters. And by diving deep into these 2 chapters, he has helped me clean up all of the remaining chapters based on stuff that I'm seeing in these 2. So, for example, the mountain did not have a name originally. And he's like, you got to have a name for the mountain. So it is Blackclaw, right? The name of the mountain is Blackclaw. Same with the city. I'm like, I don't want to name the city. He's like, name the city. So I said, okay, Shadowreach. So that there's a few different locations. Blackclaw Mountain, Shadowreach is the ruined city. Deep Delver's Enclave is the thing. And I can go back through previous iterations and look up times where it was the Deep Delver's Enclave, or it didn't have a name, the Adventurers Guild, at one point. And so I can tell when my old drafts are old because I need to shift this around. Jay Ishiro says, having feedback from others can be so helpful. I don't know any other DMs who aren't already playing in my games. I can ask for feedback and help develop ideas. Is there any place where DMs can meet up to more closely collaborate? I am a huge fan of Twitter, and I think kind of following people on Twitter, I think we have a tendency of following the most popular people, and they are very busy and they have a lot of people tweeting them. But finding other DMs on Twitter who are accessible and that you can talk to helps. I get emails, probably a handful of emails every week from DMs. I keep my email address out there, and I try to answer every email I get when people talk about campaigns or adventures that they're running or things that they've read on my site and how it's been working for them. D&D Beyond has a Discord channel, and I know that there's probably a couple of Discord places on D&D where you can use that. And I'm a fan of the Facebook 5e D&D group. That works pretty well too. A lot of people post, and you'll get a lot going from there. So that alarm says that I have been talking nonstop for an hour about this book. So I hope you have enjoyed this description. I want to thank all of you on Twitch who stuck around and let me, shill my book for a whole hour. I wanted to do this show to really dive deep into the book, and for those who are interested in it, to really get a chance to know what's in here. And I'm really glad that I had that chance, and I want to thank everybody for getting this far. And if you didn't get this far, well, then to hell with you. But for the rest of you who did, thank you very much. You guys are awesome. And I hope you will support the book. And my goal with it is to really make your lives easier as DMs. So thank you all for coming, and I want you all to have a great night.